Today we're talking about presets, and before I get too far into the video, I want to take a second to explain what a preset actually is. In the context of photography, presets are a whole series of adjustments that you can make to your photos in just one click. Presets can make as few or as many adjustments in your image as you'd like. You could change the exposure, contrast, white balance, hue, saturation, or luminance, just to name a few. If you've ever used the app VSCO before, you've used a preset. All of the filters on there act as presets. They make a series of adjustments to many different parameters of a photo in just one click. In the world of professional photography, presets are more popular than ever. Everyone from individuals to full-blown companies are making and selling their own presets. If, for example, one of your favorite photographers sells her own presets, you could buy them in order to emulate the look of your favorite photographer. Or maybe you want your digital photos to look more like film photos, so you go to a company that sells presets that are more tuned for that. Or maybe you edit tens of thousands of photos every year and you just want a preset that you can trust in order to cut down your editing time. Whatever your motivation, I don't think there's a bad reason to buy presets. I have a pretty strong opinion on how I like to edit and what I think constitutes a well-edited photo, but at the end of the day, everyone is allowed to edit their images in a way that feels best to them. However, I think there is a hidden value to presets that is often overlooked. A lot of photographers, whether beginners or professionals, use the program Adobe Lightroom. And when you buy presets for Lightroom, you get to see exactly what the preset is doing to your image. Because of that, I think presets can actually teach us how to become better editors. Better editors? Better editors. Better editors? Ben Rector. Better editors. Better editors. Now, I don't make or sell any presets of my own, so I thought it would be helpful to talk to someone who actually does. And he also happens to be the person who makes the presets that I use for all of my work. Hey Benj, how you doing, man?
Hey dude, nice. Good to see you, dude. I'm like, hey, hi. We've been talking for half an hour, but yeah, whatever.
Definitely not. No, this was filmed at the beginning, everyone.
Yeah, totally.
So, obviously we're talking about Cascade, editing, all that good stuff. And I wanted to ask if you have any kind of like editing philosophy going into Lightroom or in post-production, if there are any specific thoughts that you have before you start to edit as you're culling and maybe just looking at a specific shoot that you were on and just kind of gathering like what thoughts go into your head before you even start to edit.
Yeah, so my whole like sort of philosophy behind photographing and then delivery and like that whole thing is like I want to be able to be there and feel what it felt like to be there, right? And then try to translate, you know, especially if we're in an amazing, beautiful place, like find a way to translate the awe of being in that place into images that will bring those people back, you know, in their own memories and stuff like that to being in those moments. And so like my general kind of like philosophy behind colors and everything like that isn't to make things like too digital and too poppy and stuff like that, but also not to like make them too nostalgic into another era that's not of this era. So I'm trying to sort of like mix, both things, like sort of having an anchor point of normal solid colors and stuff like that, but then also making sure they're not like overpowering and being like beyond, or like a lot of the trends now are like color isolation, so you'll see presets and things with a ton of brown or a ton of whatever it might be, and so that to me doesn't bring me back to those places. It brings me back to it brings me out of those places and into like some other realm of, like you're setting a scene and you're setting a feeling, but it's only that feeling. So my whole thing is trying to just capture what it looked like and felt like to be there, and just like, finding ways to like slightly enhance that through lenses and coloring and composition and all that other stuff.
I like that you mentioned too, not to go too far one way or the other, because it's true that digital cameras can maybe enhance things and colors and everything beyond what even looks natural, but also not leaning so far in compensating that suddenly it looks unnatural in a different way.
Totally. And I think one of the things a few years ago, like, because I shoot a lot of film, like I have lots of film cameras around me. And I would notice that when I would pull out a film camera to like photograph some of the details and stuff like that at a wedding, oftentimes the florist or like the designer or the planner would be like, "Oh my gosh, is that film?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah," you know. And for some people, I think that you're like, "Oh, film, cool." But I think one of the reasons people were really excited to see that I was shooting film at some of these weddings is because they knew what to expect and they knew what they were getting. Because I've heard from a ton of other planners and designers and florists and other vendors that they get really disappointed when they, you know, some photographers basically, like, if the photographer is changing and shifting the colors of their work too far beyond what, you know, they spent a ton of time color matching with whatever stuff, then they're not going to be able to even use those photos and those things in their portfolios because they worked really hard to get this exact blue tone and this other thing. And so a huge kind of like wake up call for me a few years ago, not that I was shifting into any other kind of like realm of presets and stuff, was just that having something that is like has a good anchor point in reality of what it kind of felt like and looked like in all situations was going to be good for me, good for my clients, and then also really good for the other vendors involved so that they could get, you know, good quality photographs that more accurately represented what their stuff looked like in that environment. You can edit things like nostalgically and like sepia tones and like, you know, lots of black and whites and whatever. And there can be something about that can be nostalgic. You can use like some of the older Visco presets that had, you know, really gritty, like, you know, like really expired film looks to them. And that can be nostalgic in a way. But there's something about kind of, you know, working in good tonality and stuff like that, that my goal is that my clients never look back and like make fun of the coloring and like how the photo itself looked. They make fun of like what they were wearing or how their hairstyle was or, you know, what their mom was wearing or something like that. Like, I don't want to be the thing that they make fun of, because I can look at like my parents' wedding photos and stuff like that and watch like the weird double exposures of like their giant heads above the ceremony and like things like that and make fun of like the weird artistic choices that the photographers of that day did. But when I look at the actual coloring of those photos, I'm like, oh, these look really good because they were all shot on film.
That's really cool too, to think that the film stocks that they were using for your parents' wedding are film stocks that we could shoot on nowadays too, and we can achieve those same colors and tonalities.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Although we could, but some of the big puffy shoulders that my mom's like bridesmaids and stuff were wearing, I don't know how long it's going to be till that comes back in style, but it probably will at some point.
Is that the Benj Haisch prediction for future, maybe 5 years from now? Is that what's coming in?
Oh, huge, just puffy shoulders. Guys are going to be wearing like the puffy shirt pirate thing from Seinfeld. Okay. It's just going to be, it's going to be next level.
So speaking of film and the tones and colors that you find in film, was film an inspiration in the process for you to create Cascade?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I would say a lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, like, I know you shoot film and then I know you give presets or you sell presets. Like, will your presets match Portrait 400 exactly? Or, you know, whatever. Because I shoot a lot of Portrait 400, so I know what it looks like. But the thing is, like, one of the reasons in my second pack that I actually made multiple like looks within it is because I could go and shoot Portrait 400 on the East Coast or down in like the desert in, I don't know, Joshua Tree or something like that. And then I could shoot in Big Sur and then I could shoot up here. And all of that would all look different, even though it was on the same film stock, because there's just different places and lighting, and the bounce light's different, and how the environment filters the light coming in is different. And so, yeah, there's like sort of a lot of things that go into that. So like, I would say that you can like use Cascade to match film stocks for sure. They're not meant to do that necessarily, but like, I shoot my film and my digital stuff next to each other, and they look pretty similar anyway. But it also goes into like how, I mean, we could get deep into like how the lab scans your film and, you know, like what priorities you're putting on that kind of thing and what scanner they're actually using. So there's just a ton of different variables. But I would say like Cascade is definitely, I mean, inspired by what I love, which is film. So it's inspired by film, and I would say it's like anchored sort of by film. So when I was making them, I was thinking of like how Portra would react in this environment and how... for me, like, so I have like 4 different looks in Cascade 02. And so like, they're all sort of like leaning towards different film stocks. So like East has specifically like more of like a Fuji 400H, like skin tone and green tone. Because in some fluorescent green environments where the sun's just like blasting onto the grass and just like this fluorescent greenish yellow terrible, like you can just click the East preset and it'll just like dumb all that down to being a normal consumable green. But then, you know, like most of them are sort of more based off of like Kodak Portra. But again, none of them are me like shooting like a whole roll of Portra of just like different things and then that same roll on digital and then trying to like line them up exactly. But yeah, they're definitely like inspired by that. And like, I would say that me continuing to shoot film along with my digital stuff definitely like tells my digital stuff what I want it to look like, right? So it gives me like a good kind of balance of knowing like, oh, film rendered the greens like this. And so like, I'm going to do it like this too. And so the presets are definitely like within that vein, but not trying specifically to like exactly replicate, you know, Portra 400 rated at 200, scanned on a Frontier with what, you know what I mean? Like an all soft or something. Because it's just like, there's too many variables and how people do things to like, you know, try to worry about that necessarily. But yeah.
Something that I do and have been doing for the past 2 years or so that I've been using Cascade to edit really all of my work is in the first pack and in the second pack, you know, I'd buy it, I'd start to use it and kind of get familiar with it. And then over time, I started to modify each of the settings a little bit and started to tweak little parameters here and there, kind of got it into almost like what I felt was like even more into my style and kind of tried to add like my own flair to it a little bit.
Totally.
Is that something you would encourage other people who buy Cascade to do?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, here's like my kind of like 2 cents about it. So when I decided to make my own presets and stuff like that, I deleted every other preset off of my computer. I wanted nothing to do with anything. I didn't want to like go look at a preset I liked and go like, oh, that's how they did the tone curve or whatever. Because I wanted to make something that I felt like was definitely like I had every understanding of every specific little tweak I made in there. Mainly just for like integrity's sake. But what I would say is if you're not planning on selling your own presets, like maybe there's one specific thing about one specific person's work that you love and you can't figure out how to do it on your own. And you're saying that I could spend 50 to like $100 or whatever to like figure out that secret. The amount of time I would have spent in, you know, figuring that out on my own would probably far surpass that amount of time worthwhile, you know, wise. So, yeah, I mean, like, I feel like there was, you know, a few things a long time ago where I was like, oh, I can't figure out this thing with the yellow channel. And then like I would buy a preset or someone would send me something and I'd be like, oh, and then you could just take that one specific thing and like adapt it to whatever like preset you're using. So I know people that, you know, use different presets, but maybe they just took just like the indoor HSL tool out of one of my presets and use it on their preset because they're like, that preset or that tool within it makes my normal presets work better indoors. And like, who cares if you used every preset as is? Yeah, I think a huge part about it is just learning and like essentially sometimes you're just paying someone else to learn what they did. And the other thing like is my sort of like, not secret by any means, but in developing the presets, like I got them to exactly where I wanted them on my Leica cameras. And then I spent 6 months editing like 70,000 photos from other photographers on different cameras and going like, wow, amazing. These look fantastic on Leica. And then I would pull some Nikon files in and be like, these look terrible. Like they're awful.
Oh,
so I'd have to like redo that entire thing to make them look good on Leica and Nikon files. Then I have to pull in some Fuji files and like, you know, go like, these look amazing on this. And now you move on to this. And so it's so much tweaking to get them to look pretty darn good across the board. And so like, I can already tell people if they shoot Nikon and use Cascade, you know, here's a couple little HSL tweaks that you should make. And then that'll totally help out your stuff. But to try to like build specific camera presets for every camera, you know, is just like, I don't have the capacity to do that. So, yeah, like they're definitely meant to be tweaked. Like I don't tweak them on mine because like I just have them. I mean, I made them. But I definitely go in and like mess with dehaze, or, you know, I don't just like click a preset and then like sync and then I'm like, cool, here you go, clients. Like, you know, I'm doing tons of tweaks, even in HSL on my own presets on my own work at times, just to make it work. So, but I do think that, like buying someone's presets and figuring out like, okay, here's the specific part about this person's presets that I like. Maybe I'm not going to use everything about it, but maybe I love this particular part about it. Maybe there's some way that the skin tones work or something, and then you can get that preset and go, oh, cool. Like they messed with this here. I hadn't tried it like that, and maybe you can adapt it to your own work. I mean, once you kind of understand, you know, what the sliders do, then you can have way more control over how those are going to impact your own work. And so, especially with, you know, like I was talking about the indoor things, like my indoor preset is basically just like a slight adjustment to the HSL that's already hue, saturation, and luminance. For those who don't know what HSL is, to the existing preset, they just adjust a couple things within that in a couple channels. But I've seen, again, people take that and go like, okay, what's the difference between this? What's it actually doing in the HSL? And in my thing, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it translated and got sent over when in the actual production thing, but my like name for it was also like indoor HSL. So that if someone was trying to figure out like what was going on, they'd be able to go down to HSL and go, oh, click back and forth and go, oh, this is adjusting this channel this way and that way, that way. Oh, maybe I can change this, and maybe on different colors for other things, I can start learning to change this. And because that's I mean, I'm adjusting the HSL stuff on my own work all the time. So hopefully, it can be a sort of an educational thing for sure.
Dude, seriously, thank you again for agreeing to do this. I've been excited to make videos within the world of photography and the context of photography, and editing is obviously a huge component of that. And truthfully, Cascade, ever since you released the first pack, it's the only thing I've been using on my work. The first Cascade pack was huge for me. The second Cascade pack, again, huge. And both have been a really significant part of my workflow, and it's made everything more fun and easier too. So first off, thanks for doing that, and thanks for being willing to talk about it.
Oh, for sure, man. Thank you. Like, I still sort of can't believe that people are still buying them every day. Like, and people like yourself who like have really great work that I like love and respect are using the stuff that I made. Like sort of like weirdly means a lot to me. And then, it's just such an interesting thing, especially trying to make something and then hoping people actually like it and use it, you know? Like there's obviously a ton of work went into it, and obviously I was hoping that it would work, but the fact that it does work for so many people is sort of like mind-boggling for sure.
So for the 5 or so people that don't already follow your work, plug anything you want. You're on YouTube, you're on Instagram.
I'm on too many things.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah. So, I mean, Instagram, obviously YouTube as well. I have a Patreon. And basically, if you just look on just about any type of social media, except I'm not active on TikTok. So yeah, if you look just about anywhere and you're like, I wonder if Benj is on this thing, like that's my name. So, there you go. But yeah, my main ones are like YouTube and Instagram and Patreon for sure.